After having installed and activated the Gontt NeOn Toolkit plugin, the user will need to access the following menu options. Click on File, New, and then Project. Now you'll see that Gontt provides you with two options: Schedule a project from scratch and Schedule a project in a guided way. If the user selects the first option, a wizard is displayed. In this dialog, it's necessary to select the project to which the schedule will be associated. Gontt makes it possible for developers to include from-scratch processes, activities, phases, relationships, and restrictions according to his or her needs. So what does this mean in practice? Well, an example might be that an ontology conceptualization activity and an ontology formalization activity could be added. These activities are performed one after the other, so a connection is made between ontology conceptualization and ontology formalization. If the user selects the second option, Schedule a project in a guided way, Gontt will display a different wizard. In the first step of this wizard, the user has to select the project to which the schedule will be associated, together with a starting date. In the second step, the user should answer a simple question relating to the ontology requirements. Let's assume first that the user knows all the ontology requirements at the beginning of the project. That being the case, he or she should answer yes to the question in this second step. In the third and final step of the wizard, the user will be asked to answer some simple questions relating to the scenarios provided in the NeOn methodology. Now let's suppose that the user should reuse ontological and non-ontological resources by developing the ontology in both English and French. In this case, therefore, the user should answer yes to questions related to scenarios 2, 3, and 9. After this wizard, Gontt automatically generates an initial plan that the user can modify later on. For instance, one could add an ontology design pattern reuse activity to the reuse phase. As this activity has no connection to any other activity, it has no temporal limit, meaning that it can't be placed wherever the user chooses. The input of this activity is the output of the ontology requirement specification activity, so a connection is added from this activity. And the output of the ontology design pattern reuse activity is the input of the ontology conceptualization activity, and so another connection is added. Now, as we have added connections to other activities, the ontology design pattern reuse has two temporal limits: the end of the ontology requirement specification activity and the beginning of the ontology conceptualization activity. Let's now consider another scenario. Let's suppose that the user doesn't know all the ontology requirements at the beginning of the project. In such a case, usually when we're at the second stage of the wizard, the user should answer no to the question that's posed. Let's also suppose that the user should develop the ontology in 3 iterations. So Gontt presents the user with the following questions. In iteration 1, the user should reuse ontological resources. Thus, the user should answer yes to the question related to scenario number 3. In iteration 2, the user should reuse non-ontological resources and ontology design patterns. Thus, the user should answer yes to questions related to scenario numbers 2 and 7. In iteration 3, the user should reuse and re-engineer ontological resources and also localize the ontology. Thus, he or she should answer yes to questions related to scenarios 3, 4 and 9. Gontt is also a methodological tool that provides methodological guidelines. For example, with Gontt we can see the description of a given activity with the filling card. We can also see methodological guidelines showing how a process or activity can be performed. And finally, we can also open the plugin that performs a given process or activity and obtain a quick start guide on how to use it. And that ends this brief summary of the Gontt plugin for the NeOn Toolkit.